One of the things that I remember most from your speech at Return to Nature was you said, I microdose fun. And I thought that was so brilliant. In the spiritual communities and all these things, and everyone's talking about microdosing psychedelics. You're like, we're going to microdose fun. That is such a brilliant idea and so accessible to everybody.
It's so accessible and it's so powerful. What I'm actually doing in that 2 minutes is something called expanded gaze. And what that does from a neurological perspective, because I needed to know, like, this is actually moving the needle, it guides you into your parasympathetics. So it takes you out of like this headspace, this busy headspace, and it puts you in your heart.
Welcome to the Quantum Lens podcast. I'm your host, Oksana Hansen. This is a space where science meets soul, a heart-centered, conscientious podcast designed to nurture your spiritual, emotional, and physical well-being through the wisdom of quantum biology, holistic healing, and a deep self-discovery. We'll explore what it truly means to live in alignment. If you're ready to open your heart, expand your mind, you're in the right place.
Dr. Melissa Saunders, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today. Welcome to the Quantum Lens podcast.
Thank you for having me. Very happy to be here.
I'd love to just give you a quick opportunity to introduce yourself. I know we met at Runga years and years ago, and I'm so excited that we were able to connect, and it felt like we were very like-minded and in the same space in the health and wellness. And you were able to attend my retreat this last year, which I was so excited about. And so I'd love to kind of dive into that as well. But I'd love to just give people an introduction of like who you are and your company and your business and what you do.
Yeah, sure. I am a chiropractor. I like to say I'm a nervous system expert and alignment guide. I was in practice for about 18 years with my husband, physically treating and working with patients. We still have a very large holistic wellness center in New Jersey. We currently now live in Miami, which I shared a bit of that story and transition on your stage. We could talk about that if you want. And I've now moved into, where I was in the past removing physical interference from people's body as a hands-on chiropractor, letting the nervous system and the body heal itself. I'm now working more with people on removing mindset interference and blocks, teaching in particular women how to really work with and retrain what I call our hardwiring, our nervous system, and really change our idea of self-care as being this thing outside of us. It's like we all hear as women, we've got to put our oxygen mask on first. We've got to take care of ourselves before assisting others. But as a busy woman, which I'm sure many of your listeners are, I had always struggled with that. I've now got on top of my busy to-do list, I now have this thing that I've not only want to, but I'm supposed to stick in to take care of myself. That's yet another item on the to-do list. So I love to say self-care needs a rebrand. It's not this 1 hour appointment that's outside of ourselves. Self-care is truly connection and nervous system regulation. And so my passion is teaching and guiding women, like I said, to be able to incorporate that in 2-minute micro moments, the pockets of time that we actually have access to, and most importantly, so that we can regulate and reconnect with ourselves in the crazy moments of life where we actually need it the most, not just in those times where we can push, and keep going until we can get to blank, right? Until we can get to the end of the day and then relax, until we can get to the weekend and then put our feet up. No, I want to help women work through those roadblocks, bust through those ceilings of limiting beliefs, programming, that prevent us in the daily moments from actually taking those small opportunities to catch our breath. Because ultimately what we're doing when we do that is we are retraining our nervous system, and we completely change the way that we show up in the world, not by focusing on what we do, but on who we be first. And that changes everything. And it's one of the easiest things I've ever incorporated in my life.
I love that so much. And one of the things that I remember most from your speech at Return to Nature was you said, I microdose fun. And I thought that was so brilliant. I was like, in the world where, in the spiritual communities and all these things, and everyone's talking about microdosing psychedelics, you're like, we don't we're gonna microdose fun and those little moments that you do have between your appointments, between, whatever little moments you have throughout the day. I was like, that is such a brilliant idea and so accessible to everybody.
It's so accessible and it's so powerful. And, I don't know if every person needs to hear this, but what I needed is like, give me weight to this. Give me the proof, because for so long I thought that if I wasn't doing something for an hour, right? And let's like zoom out for a minute, because I think a lot of us probably think this way. And this is a really important paradigm, an old, outdated paradigm to smash through. That if we're not working out for an hour, it's not effective, right? We've got 10 minutes, but like, what could I actually get done in that pocket of time? So I'm not going to work out. I'm going to catch up on emails, scroll my phone, kind of like waste the time because it's not enough time. Right. Or, I'm tired. God, I need a break, but it's 1 p.m. on a Tuesday. Like I got to push through. I only have a 5-minute break. Like I don't have time to recharge. I'll try to get to it tonight at the end of the day. Well, a couple things happen there. When we get to that end of the day or end of the week or, whatever it is, we've essentially trained our nervous system to stay in what I talked about on your stage 2, is stay in beta. It's like we're seeding our nervous system to live in this constant go, go, go state. And so then what happens, and I think a lot of people have probably had this experience, you get to that pocket of time where you actually can relax and you don't know how to. And so what this looks like is, finally sitting down for the day, but being kind of wired, sitting down and instead of putting your feet up and like fully exhaling, catching up on to-dos, doing emails, or, complete opposite direction, doom scrolling, or being so frozen that you sink into the couch and binge Netflix. Like all good things, but the middle ground is somewhere where we can actually enjoy these moments and get that exhale and feel present for them, right? It's not the one extreme or the other. And so when we can understand that there's actually a lot of powerful neuroscience behind these 2-minute pockets of time and microdosing connection, I think what usually happens, what I see happen in my community and the women that I speak to, is that we actually start to understand how powerful it is and we incorporate it into our lives. So one of the things I'll show a lot on my socials is I go for these lizard walks, right? Everyone gets a kick out of them. I live in Miami. In between, like right after this podcast, it's what I'll do before my team meeting. I'll go around the corner. It takes me literally 2 minutes and I go look at this field of iguanas and there's like 50 of them and they run as soon as I come up. And what I'm actually doing in that 2 minutes is something called expanded gaze. And what that does from a neurological perspective, because I needed to know, like, this is actually moving the needle, it forces you, it guides you into your parasympathetics. So it takes you out of like this headspace, this busy headspace, and it puts you in your heart, is ultimately what happens. It quiets the part of your brain called your amygdala, that's like our inner security guard that's constantly looking for threats or what we need to focus on or what we need to do. It gets us into present time consciousness. It's effective. It's as effective as a half hour on a PEMF mat. It's as effective as a half hour on one of those like virtual reality, I love like Brain Tap. It's as effective as that. So these 2-minute pockets of time do so much. And you and I are in the biohacking, communities as well. And we can look at all these tools, these heavy hitting tools that I love, like I use and I love. I have a PEMF mat right behind me. I've got a sauna. I've got a hyperbaric chamber. I have all the big tools. I believe in them strongly. But where we are missing out is thinking, one, like I keep saying, that we have to have this big chunk of time. And two, most importantly, that there's something outside of us, a tool in this case, that is more powerful than what we have access to in any moment. All these tools do is they regulate our nervous system and they get us out of fight or flight, out of our head and into parasympathetics, into our heart. And we can do that in any moment on our own.
Well, and what's really interesting about what you're saying is I think we're kind of used to, or at least I was raised to kind of give my power away. Like I was always looking for healers or massage therapists or this or that. And all those things are wonderful. Like you're saying, those are all tools that are available to us. But at one point, I kind of felt paralyzed in my health journey because I thought, oh, I need someone to tell me what to do. And it was like I was giving my power away.
Mm.
And I sort of feel that same way when I give my power away to like social media. When you're talking about the microdosing the fun or microdosing these moments of being present, I also feel like you can train your brain to like microdose the doom scrolling, like you called it, right? I think we're so used to giving our power away. I feel like this is what you're talking about is really a revolution to come back to self, to return to yourself.
Yeah, we're living in a really noisy time. There's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of static. There's a lot of information, at any time, in any moment. I look at my boys, right? So my dad used to play this game with us growing up. I forget what it was called, but it was like 724. I don't remember it exactly. But the point was, if we had a question, if we had a theory, if we were like, I think this thing is possible. He's like, all right, great. You have 7 days or 24 hours to prove it to be true. And we had to go and look around and figure it out. Literally today, in that moment, as we all know, my kids can hop on any device and be like, boom,
Right.
there's the answer. Right. And so we're living in this really cool time. I don't want to just knock the digital world because I think there's a lot of amazing things that come from that. Right. We have the ability to work from home and have freedom and travel with our families. I love so many things about it. But what's happening is we are having less and less space to hear our own voice in this loud world that we're living in. And so, like you said, we're constantly outsourcing, I think, without even realizing it. It's, we want an answer to something, we look it up instead of, returning home. This is really ultimately everything we're talking about. It's not an addition, it's a subtraction. It's not looking outside of you to ask, what do I need? What do I do? Who needs me? It's what do I need? What would help me in this moment? I like to share like these just real moments on socials. That's what I use social for, right? I think social media was originally created for connection, and that's what I want out of it. And I'm not going to show up on there if it's not going to create that. And so like this morning, I went on there. And I always want people to understand, I'm not sitting here as a nervous system expert saying that I don't experience any of these feelings or emotions or get dysregulated or that I don't feel overwhelmed or stressed. I feel all those things often. Like the feelings are not the problem. But I think, what I want people to understand is one, how to use them, how to start to have an internal dialogue with ourselves. And two, then how to lean in and figure out what it is that you need in order to like change who you be and how you show up before you hit your to-do list. So an example I showed this morning, I'm just in like we were saying before recording, I'm at the tail end of like a really slammed 3 weeks, a really beautiful 3 weeks. And I'm tired, right? Like, and that's okay. And to wake up today and I had a lot on my plate and then woke up to a sick kid. And it's just one of those days, right? And so I showed on my stories, here's what I do in those moments. Because I could easily just hop right into my to-do list, approach the day from like a kind of yucky place. Probably everyone I come into contact with today would feel that. And instead, I sat for literally 3 minutes this morning. I sat in the quiet with myself and I asked myself questions. What is it I'm feeling? Overwhelmed. Okay, why? Let her rip, sister. I mean, there was like 50 things that came from that. Valid things, right? And then the most important question is, okay, what do I need? And the more we start to create this internal dialogue with ourselves, the louder these little whispers that we all have get. And so what's really cool is in that moment, I get complete clarity. What do I need? I need a walk in the sun. I need to blast a fun song. I need everyone to leave me alone for like 3 minutes while I set myself for the day. Great. Okay. How easy is that? Whereas past me would probably think, oh my God, I mean, it's whatever day it is, Wednesday. Like, I don't get a break till this weekend. That is not the case anymore. So I went out, I got a sunshine walk. I used our friend Sarah Kleiner's amazing My Circadian app. I love seeing like what's going on in sunshine. It's boosting my neurotransmitters. It's changing my mood. It's changing my energy. I went on my YouTube music app. I thought for a minute, like, what would be a really fun song? I picked a song from the 90s. I don't give a flying F anymore. I was dancing around doing my walk and like completely shifted in 3 minutes. And that is my goal of everything that I teach in my platforms, in the book that I have coming out. It's pairing the neuroscience with what we've always known to be true. It's pairing the data with, ultimately, if you just listen to your heart, it's going to tell you the same thing. It's putting the power behind your little voice telling you this feels good and giving you the data to remind you to lean in. Because in the age of information and knowledge, we are so forgetting about the inner voice, that intuition and the wisdom. And if we just got quiet for a little bit more of our day, we would have all of that back. And it's one of the most powerful guides we could ever have. And it's always there with us.
I love that simple approach of asking questions, because that really is your subconscious. It's going to answer first, and it's going to answer truthfully. And by asking that question, you're really allowing your mind to respond honestly and quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But what would you say if someone gets in their head about it? Like, you're like, oh, maybe that's, what if someone just doesn't know how to listen? Like, what would be your advice to them?
You mean, well, tell me specifically what you mean.
Like, what if I was like, oh, what do I need today? And then I start having this inner conflict, like inner dialogue, instead of just trusting the response that comes out.
I think start there. Start there, because if you haven't done it before, if you're a little bit rusty, if you haven't done it enough lately because you've been really busy serving everybody else and worrying about not wanting to disappoint anybody else, and in the meantime, disappointing yourself, it's like we've got to clear some static first. And so I think what's really important here, and that's a great question, I'm glad you brought it up, is just having the courage to kind of sit through the practice. I love the word practice. Every time we're spending time with ourselves, you are changing your nervous system. Our nervous system is our hardwiring. It is how we read our environment. And it dictates every feeling we have, every decision we make, like literally everything. It's the master controller. And we have taught it to function a certain way. We've taught it to go, go, go. We've taught it to do, do, do. And so what usually will happen is when we start to slow down, when we start to get quiet, you will hear a lot of chatter. You will hear probably some voices, some stories, some second guessing. Some people will call it ego. It could be maybe the voice of like your mother or your father or a teacher or a mentor of yours, like, how dare you? Or why would you do that? Or like, look at, you're so stupid, right? Those kind of voices. How dare you do this when you've got so much to do? That means you're doing it right. It doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. That is a part of our nervous system. It's called our amygdala, and its desire is to keep us safe. And anything unfamiliar, new, or that we haven't done in a while is going to get flagged as a threat. And so it's going to do anything it can to pull you out of that experience and back into the familiar. So if you're not used to asking yourself these questions, if you're not used to creating these little microdoses of space for yourself, your nervous system, in order to keep you quote unquote safe, is going to really try really hard to pull you into the known, to pull you into your to-do list, to pull you into what you normally would be filling every second of every minute of your day with. Because your nervous system, your brain, your amygdala will crave a familiar hell that is keeping you stuck, that is keeping you stressed, that is keeping you burnout and underserving yourself, rather than a potential heaven 99% of the time. And so the most important piece in knowing this is knowing that you are not doing it wrong when it happens. You are practicing. And as you continue to practice, and I love the word practice again, because it allows us to not show up perfectly. And practice, you think about any sport, the point of practice is to work through the messy so that when it's game time, you show up your best. So in those moments, you are practicing so that you start to become more able to be fully present with yourself. Because I'll speak to you, Oksana, as a mama, because this is where my heart is as a mama. You're practicing being fully present with yourself in those moments. And it's okay that it's messy, Because to me, as a mom of the game time, the most important moment is the moment where, like what happened this morning, I'm in go mode, we're running late, blah, 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 all the things. I'm in high beta, like, let's go, let's go. And my daughter has a moment where I need to be able to completely stop everything and 100% be present with her. That's the game. I can't do that if I can't practice being 100% present with myself. We can't give to another person what we can't give to ourselves. And so, especially as moms, we constantly hear, enjoy every moment. It goes so fast. And not every moment is enjoyable. Those moments with our kids can be really hard. It can be really hard because our mind is going one way. We're doing the mama math. I got to be in the car 5 minutes ago to get to the thing, to do the thing, whatever. But those are, I think we need to replace that mantra of enjoy every moment with be present for the moments that matter the most. And those moments, those hard moments with our kids where we can turn down our nervous system, where we can in an instant move from our head to our heart, is what we need in order to have that ability to be present for the moments that our kids need us the most. Because when we miss those moments, or when we freak out at those moments, which is very easy to do, I still do that sometimes, then how does the rest of our day go? Like those are the days where we then drop our kids off at school or whatever, and you replay it. You're like, oh God, that felt horrible. Or you put your head on your pillow at night and you're like, God, that sucked. And then you go look at your kids sleeping, right? Like, our lives are beautiful. And thank God for these stressors. Like we have a family, we have a job, we have a career, we have a home or a place to live in. That's stress. These are all beautiful things. And how can we take these, precious little moments and microdosing, connection, play, joy, whatever it is, so that we can train our hardwiring in our nervous system to flow through the day, rather than to create force and be in these like up downs all day, fight or flight, guilt, shame, fight or flight, exhausted, doom scroll, right? It's like, those days where you get through the day and you look back, God, that day was so easy. Everything happened and it happened so smoothly. Maybe it was my new haircut, or maybe it was just luck, or maybe it was the moon, or maybe it was that great coffee I made this morning. No, you actually have the ability to intentionally create those days in your life. And it's through the nervous system regulation. It's through the microdosing these moments and training our nervous system. And it's through aligning with our brainwaves, which we could talk about as well. That's like such a great formula to follow to help, navigate training your nervous system as well in the moments where things get loud when we're trying to sit in the quiet.
I want to just point out, it's something you said, I'm not sure it was a direct quote, but I wrote down practice over perfection. Because I don't know about you, but I've just always a perfectionist. Like I wanted everything to be perfect. Well, when you have a family and kids and dogs and all these things, it is seldom ever perfect. And so that practice, I love that mindset. That really resonated with me because it gives me permission to show up the way that I am. It gives me permission to be messy, and it gives me permission to be present and have fun and all the things too. And sometimes it will be perfect, but most of the time it won't be. But I like that practice. That was a really beautiful twist on that.
Good. I think that's a really important one for, every woman listening to adopt, because it is a permission slip, right? And how often do we shame ourselves for falling short? When in reality, anytime in life that's going to happen in general, but especially when you're adopting new practices, when you're reaching for something new, when you're breaking cycles of what you were taught, or, recreating the environment that maybe you grew up in, it's going to be challenging. We are going to bump up against a ceiling of limitation. Feeling like a failure, feeling like an imposter is the price of admission when you are cycle breaking, when you are pushing past old stories and limiting beliefs, when you are reaching for something that you've never had or never done. And I think we're all doing that in some capacity and in some regard, whether, we're wanting to take the amazing things that we learned from our parents and maybe add our spin and twist on it and do it a little bit better, right? We're doing something new and unfamiliar. And so there's going to be times where we are going to react from an old script, an old program, and we're going to do it the old way. And instead of shaming ourselves in those moments, knowing, again, that is the price of admission. We are going to have the old story play out, and to know that simply being aware in those moments means you're winning. And I want to dissect that a little bit because this is really, really important for anyone who's cycle breaking. And what I mean by that is just doing better than what you have learned previously or what you've done previously in your life. If you're doing that, you're a cycle breaker, which I think is pretty cool. Congratulations. When you can create an awareness and simply notice that you are choosing an old habit, right? So let's walk through some examples. I want to start eating clean. I'm on track. Monday did great. Tuesday did great. Wednesday, someone brought cupcakes into work and I had it. Dang, I'm a failure. No, simply creating awareness. Wow, even in the moment, look at me. I'm grabbing for that cupcake. I know exactly what's happening right now. Don't do it. Don't do it. I'm putting it in my mouth. Oh my God, I failed. No, like you are no longer reacting without thinking about it. You are pausing enough to become conscious of the choices that you're making, and that is a win. Because in the old way, you just did these things. You did these things without thinking about it, and now you have the power of a pause, and you have the power of making a choice. And even if there are moments where you make the old choice, simply that awareness is creating new neural synapses, new connections in your brain. And every time you do that, what you are doing is you are literally, it's like you're lawn mowing a new path in tall grass. And every time you create awareness, you are making it easier and easier to go down the new path. And so as women, I think we have just unfortunately gotten really good at beating ourselves up, guilting and shaming ourselves for not showing up, like you said, perfectly. And it doesn't serve us. I think it really prevents success and forward movement and momentum. You know, these slip-ups are part of the human experience. Everyone experiences them. And I think this is where, you know, community and the 5 people you surround yourself with is so important, because anyone out there trying to do better is going to experience that. And so when you can have a friend to lean on, you know, we're doing this together, we're going to eat clean together, or, you know, we're going to be more present with our children together. It's like having that person to lean on, like, I fell short today. Okay, get up and do it again tomorrow. Like, so it's okay. Move on.
I love that. You know, what's interesting is we've been implementing this in our family, and I feel like it really resonates what you're talking about, because in a moment where I might have reacted in like an adverse way, I will say, because, right, we still have those moments. We're not perfect. We've implemented this thing where you just stop. And in the moment where if you think you're going to get mad or, you know, react in a way you might regret later, we do a silly dance move. And if someone sees, like, does a silly dance move, then whoever else is in the room has to get up and do a silly dance move. And we've done this thing now where it's become this like ritual that we do in our family. And by the end of it, it like takes 1 minute. And by the end of it, all 4 of us are on the floor laughing, because we've taken like maybe a tense situation and turned it into something really fun and silly and made it lighthearted. And then we're hugging and smiling rather than having like,
so cute. You're creating a pattern interrupt.
yes. Whereas like, I'm not going to be the parent that yells. I'm trying to like be more conscious of catching myself in situations, but then also making it fun and funny and like a good situation where everyone feels good about it. Whereas before it would be like, you know, yelling and maybe shame after, and then apologizing and then crying, and, you know, and made something that would have lasted an hour into something that like turns out into a really good situation in just a minute or two.
Yeah. So is that, you know, is that where you're cycle breaking? Like, is the old way maybe what you learned from watching your family?
100%.
So it takes, right? So our hardwiring is learned from our parents or for whoever was our main mentors growing up, right? And so when every time you're doing what you're doing with your children, if things are tense and you're choosing to not yell, which any mama will tell you, doing these things, is hard, right? I'm just going to say it because I think we can feel like we're bad moms for feeling these things, when in reality, this is what connects us as women. And these are the things that we need to talk about. And I know you and I are very present, loving parents, and yet still it's hard if that is what you watched and that is what you learned, because that is our hardwiring. And so every time we're in that moment with our children where things get tense, our default is our hardwiring. So every time you switch that, it takes work. It takes conscious effort. But what's so cool about the nervous system, which is our hardwiring, is that it is reprogrammable. It is changeable. And here's what's really important, really, really important. It's not in the 1 hour sessions where we regulate our nervous system that changes the hardwiring. It's in the consistent micro moments. This is why I'm such a fan of microdosing, but I'm not talking about mushrooms and that. I'm talking about microdosing connection, right? Because that is seeding and training your nervous system. I grew up in a home where my dad, who I'm very close to, he would constantly with his words talk about, he would say, strengthen your emotional muscle. So like if I ever talked about something stressful at school or homework, you got to strengthen your emotional muscle. So his words said one thing, but my dad had a still much better now, very dysregulated nervous system, meaning I would watch him the second he got triggered, he flew off the handle. Someone's at a stoplight in front of him and doesn't hit the gas the second the light turns green, freak out, right? And as an empathetic, sensitive person, I feel before I hear. And so I grew up in a home where my nervous system felt constantly dysregulated because of my dad. And he's an amazing man, an amazing father, but that is the cycle that I'm breaking with my kids, right? So if I'm stressed in the morning, it's why I do the work that I do. And I love that we're both taking a moment to share the specifics of what ours are, because I imagine every person listening to this in some way, shape, or form has had their hardwiring impacted in a way from the past, from someone who raised them, that they're trying to change. And I'm telling you, ladies, please God, like if we ever sit together at a table or for coffee or whatever, like let's have more of these kinds of conversations. Here's what I learned in my family and here's what I'm doing differently. And they did an incredible job. And like, here's where I'm really struggling. Here's the moments that are really hard for me. And like, I love coming on a podcast like this. Like, these are the conversations I want to have, you know? Not just the conversations that are like, okay, now here's what we know about hormones, and here's the 50 things you need to do for your hormones, and here's the 50 biohacks you need to incorporate. No, like these conversations, these takeaways are things that you don't really need anything extra for. It's an awareness and it's a remembrance that everything you need is within you at any time. And it's becoming our own friend again, so that in those moments where, you know, like Oksana, you're wanting to not yell at your kids. And for me, I'm wanting to not express how dysregulated I feel in that moment, or I'm wanting to know the tools so badly to switch in that moment that I study them for a decade and that's what I teach. Because it's that important for me because of what I felt as a kid to not do that to mine. But that, you know, in those moments, this is what I was trying to say, that we befriend ourselves so that in those moments where we're alone with our children, where we mess up, where we don't do our best, that we're like, it's okay. I now remember it's practice. It's okay to not show up perfectly. Hey, anyone hearing this, like, shoot me a message, like, talk to me about it. I'll tell you where I've messed up. I'll remind you it's okay. I'll remind you how incredible of a job you're doing. But what's really important is that when you don't have me, or when you don't have Oksana, or when you can't throw on a podcast to figure out what the hell to do, that you have you. And you get you back by spending micro doses of time with yourself, so that in that moment, when you mess up and you're beating yourself up and you feel horrible, and if you could describe that feeling, it usually feels like tension, or things are going 100 miles an hour, or stress, right? Because I think sometimes we have to name it because we've gotten so out of touch with our feelings. How can you get back to you? And the answer is always by getting quiet and asking yourself, what do I need? What do I need in this moment? And the more you do it, the more you'll get the answer. And like Oksana said, an incredible tool in that moment, music is one of my favorite ways to alchemize. It's almost always music. I need a song. Great. I'm in the kitchen. I just showed up with my kids in a way that I didn't want to. What do I need right now? Aerosmith sounds fun. Google, play Aerosmith. It sounds so silly, but I just shared this on my Instagram this morning. I mean, 2 minutes of listening to a song that you love is as powerful as a 60-minute yoga class in boosting your HRV and activating your parasympathetic nervous system. When we do this, not only are we doing it for us, but we co-regulate together. So how cool for our kids to watch. How cool for us to teach our kids not only through our words, but our actions. Whew, that didn't feel good, guys. I yelled at you. I'm sorry. That's mine, not yours. Let me take it back. And you know what? I want to feel better right now. What do I need? Aerosmith. Like literally, we role model through our kids, through our actions they're watching, and how powerful to hand down the ability for them to get back into their heart in any moment, to regulate, to become conscious. Because everything from there happens easier, better, right? It's not just about IQ anymore. We know that. It's about emotional, your EQ.
Yeah, and thank you for being vulnerable and open and saying, yeah, we've all done it. We were all doing it. This is a practice. I just think that's wonderful. I think it's very vulnerable, and for you to share that and giving me the space to be able to share that as well. It feels really good because at the end of the day, we're all human. We're all having this life experience, and there are days we do it really well and there are some days we don't, and that's okay.
100%. I will tell you too, as a woman who, didn't feel like I had community for a long time. And I think we all need community, especially as women. We are communal beings. This is how I started. I started by being vulnerable and open and saying the things like this at tables. Like, whew, that felt a little weird and embarrassing, right? Like saying the things out loud that every human being feels. Instead of feeling like, I don't feel like I've ever showed up like fake or anything like that. But I think a lot of times, I don't know if you've ever done this, but I used to first, before I went into a room or social situation, I would ask, how do I need to show up to make everybody else feel good? Or like, what version of you do I need to bring to this event? And instead, now I ask, like, what do I need in order to feel my best here? And usually it's connection. Like, I want to create connection. So I want to get my heart first, and then whatever happens, happens. But, I think the way that we create community is by first creating it in ourselves, with having these open questions and dialogue with ourselves, figuring out who we actually are, what we need, what we desire again. And then having these conversations instead of like the weather or the school or what's the weekend plan. All fun things, but I don't know. I think these are just so much more connecting.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when I was creating Return to Nature, that was really what I had in mind. It was like, I want to create a community, and I was seeking community, and it never really felt right. And I was like, well, then I'm a, manifester. I'll just manifest my own community.
Mm-hmm.
And I did.
You did. You totally did.
It was the most wonderful feeling in the whole world. I felt so connected. And I truly do think that the people that are meant to be in your life and that are meant to be in your community, like, they will show up. Right.
Yeah.
And having this event was one of the most fulfilling things I've ever done in my life. Like, it was just such a cool, it felt like a birth. It felt like, creating something like you're doing with your book. I'm sure you feel the same way. Like, for me, I finally feel like, wow, this is my calling. Like, I really, really feel like I have found it, something that truly fulfills me.
Yeah, I think, people show up for you when you show up for yourself. I think when we start showing up for ourselves, our community finds us, because what I know about you before running that incredible event, which we should talk about, you took some brave, bold moves for yourself, right? I think you heard some callings, you heard some whispers of what you maybe no longer wanted in your life and what you wanted. And it's interesting. I think the path to becoming your true self, to listening to what truly lights you up, isn't always beautiful. It can be really hard, because you're saying no to a lot of things that people are used to you saying yes to. And you no longer want to sit at tables that don't hit the same, and that can feel really, really uncomfortable, but what's on the other side is incredible and 10 times more worth it. But I think that is one of the most important takeaways in what you just said. Your community will find you when you show up for yourself. It's that first piece that's the most important. And I know something like the event that you created is how maybe the woman who's listening to this conversation and doesn't know where to start, go to a live event. Go to a live event that moves you, that reminds you of who you are, that opens your heart and creates that feeling of what I'll call alignment again, where it's like this. I want more of this. And I think in the wonderful age of digital world where we can have these conversations from hundreds of miles away from each other, there's such an importance in getting back to live events because of that piece, because it reminds you of what it feels like to sit in your true self. And then you leave an event like what Oksana created and you have a community to lean on, even though everyone lives kind of all over, as you're taking these brave, bold moves on yourself. You're not alone anymore. You can lean on these people. Okay, I came home. I felt lit up after that event and I came home and these things happen and it's really hard and I'm stuck again, but I want to bust through. And you've got other people doing the exact same thing. And it's such an important part of the whole equation, when we're talking about health and aging gracefully or longevity. I think community and connection are the top 1 and 2 tied pieces of that. So thank you. I say all that to say thank you for creating that event. It was incredible. And I think you're having it again.
I am. Yay. Well, a heartfelt thank you to you, for showing up to the inaugural event, not knowing what to expect or what it was going to be like, and for supporting this vision and this dream. And so thank you very much for being a part of it.
Oh, of course. I was honored. Yeah.
So I want to talk about the book that you now have out. You want to tell people about it?
Yes. So I wrote the book. It's called The Connection Code. I literally, it's a story for another time, but I lost myself as a woman. And I literally lost my mind. Shared that on your stage too. I think I have it out there somewhere on a podcast.
Yeah, people can also go to the Quantum Lens podcast. It actually released yesterday. They can listen to your whole speech. So either your YouTube or the Quantum Lens podcast as well.
Awesome. Okay, so you guys can hear that story there. And that experience set me on a trajectory of doing the research behind figuring out how can we actually take care of ourselves as women in the reality of our lives today. And basically for the last a little bit over a decade, I've just been nerding out on neuroscience. I love the brain. I love the nervous system, obviously, and pairing it with the wisdom. And I say I cracked the code. Self-care needs a rebrand. We need to get back to connection with ourselves and have access to it in the micro moments. And so that's what this book is. I made it super simple. It's very playful. The cover, when you see it, if you click on the link, it's all sparkles. Like, please judge this book by the cover. As women, we need to get back to light and play. I went back to gymnastics a couple years ago at the age of 42. Like, it's getting back to that, because ultimately these are the things that change our health, change the way that we show up the most. And I share the science behind it in the book. So I'm really, really excited to put this out into the world. It's with my favorite dream publisher, Hay House, and I know we'll share the links to that.
And you guys have to go listen to Dr. Melissa's story about her gymnastics. I mean, it was... I'm not gonna ruin it on this podcast, but
we could tease that I got invited to compete, and then turns out it was all kids like age 8 to 10. But I said yes.
It was so good, you guys. And she shares the actual video of it too, which is amazing. Again, thank you for showing up in your full authenticity. Wow, like how brave is that? As you're sharing this like really vulnerable story, but also you're like, I'm gonna compete with all these little kids, and you're like, and I got first place. Woohoo!
I know. I got a medal. We all got a medal.
I love it so much. So where can people find you? What offerings do you have? Where can they find your book?
Yeah, everything is on my website, drmelissasonners.com, which I'm sure we'll link below. You can literally find everything on there. I do play a lot on socials. I think socials can be really fun. So my handle for Instagram is Be Inspired Mama, MAMA. I've got a YouTube channel and a podcast by the same name. And then the book is called The Connection Code. We can do a direct link below. It's on Amazon, online at all the bookstores, and it comes out in physical form, I think April 14th. But if you pre-order before that, I've got some really cool freebies in there for you.
Very fun. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. And I love to end every podcast with the same question. And because it's a heart-centered podcast, I just want you to share, what does love mean to you?
That's a good one. I think love is a feeling, right? Love is, from a nervous system perspective, it's getting out of our head and into our heart, right? But I'm going to share a mantra that my husband and I say to each other a lot. And I think this is a really good one for marriage and relationships. Love is a verb. And so especially when you're with someone for a long time, or just even, in the world today that can feel conflicted and divided, love is a verb. So go out there and show love through your actions. I know that sounds like really cheesy and cliche, but in our home, in our relationship, love is a verb. I can walk by my husband and say, I love you, or I can verb love him. I can sneak up and give a hug. I can put a delicious meal in front of him. I can grab his hand and take him for a walk, right? Or if I'm out running errands, I can love verb the person checking out my groceries. And so I think that is one of my favorite mantras. Love is a verb. And the way that we can give love to others is by first giving it to ourselves. So I'm going to end this by bringing it back full circle. I have a bumper sticker on my car. It says, love yourself. Verb, love yourself, right? Take these micro moments every day of connection. Take these 2 minutes where you think you don't have time and, instead of hopping on or scrolling your phone or finishing that last email, and instead go for a 2-minute walk, or ask yourself what song would feel fun right now and put that on. It takes 2 minutes. And in the moments where you choose the old way and you do catch up on email or scroll your phone, don't beat yourself up. Great. Hope you enjoyed it. How fun. Next time, maybe you'll choose different.
Just go outside and do it.
Go outside and do it. Yeah. I mean, we all do it, right? There's times where I choose to doom scroll. There's times where I choose to because it feels good in the moment. I know it's not going to move the needle. It's not going to change how I ultimately feel. It's not even a brain break because it puts you in beta, like we've talked about before. It's like a brain numb, but that's not even accurate. It's a complete waste of time. And sometimes it feels really good to waste your time doing something that you desire. So no judgment, permission, right? But start to incorporate these other microdoses as well. And then maybe you'll choose 80% of the time these other ones instead of the doom scroll, because ultimately they're going to feel better and you're going to get back to loving yourself.
Love is a verb.
Love is a verb.
Feel
free to take it, use it, a bumper sticker.
This is going to be a bumper sticker.
We love as a verb our kids. Yes. I think that one's really easy. But how often do you love as a verb your partner?
Ooh, my husband and I do this 3-mile walk every morning. And we walked by this new couple in our neighborhood and they were holding hands. And we both kind of looked at each other. And I think I joked something like, that must be a second marriage.
Right, because you see the newness, the sparklies.
I know. I'm going to apologize because I was really bitchy in the moment. And I realized it when my husband looked at me and he took my hand and we walked for the rest of the walk hand in hand. And I was like, and then I self-reflected after I said that. And I was like, oh no, this is just such a perfect ending to this whole love as a verb conversation.
It really is.
Because we kind of saw somebody else doing that, showing their love, but it also gave us a moment to connect in the same way, which was actually a gift.
And also, let's take it one step further. When you said, you had that tongue-in-cheek remark and you're calling it bitchy. No, that's where we create these moments of connection with ourselves, because we all do that, right? We all have that. They must have just gotten married. And instead of thinking something's wrong with us for talking like that, right? There is desire under that.
Right.
So leaning in instead of distracting out, ooh, that doesn't feel good. I don't like that version of me. Let me push her away. No, let me ask her, what of that does she desire? What of that does she miss? Why can't I create that in my marriage? It's this inner discovery, no judgment, no shame. Like I think we've all done that in some regard. You see someone running or playing or do something you want to do. It must be nice to have all the time in the world. No, we all have a little bit of time. We're just not taking action into what we truly desire.
Well, and how
That
beautiful for
negative,
my husband to recognize that and take my hand instead of judging me for saying that. He was like, "Oh, I see little Oksana, like she wants me to hold her hand." Like, right.
that's beautiful. So beautiful. It's a good marriage. That's a marriage that's come through deep communication. You can tell,
Sure. Thank you so much for this conversation. I love it so much and so excited to read your book. And yeah, and hopefully you'll be back to Return to Nature next year, June
Yes,
11th and 12th. So
June 11th and 12th. Okay, I'm going to mark my calendar. I loved that event. It would take a lot for me to miss it.
well, thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in to the Quantum Lens podcast. I hope this episode brought you insight, inspiration, and a deeper connection to your journey. If you've loved what you heard, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Let's keep this conversation going. And until next time, keep aligning, expanding, and embrace the magic of who you are.